Um,
Thank you. Thank you, little
Perfect.
Zoom voice.
It's not creepy at all.
No, I love it. I do love it actually. It cracks me up every time. But no, yeah, I started actually in school. I actually have never wanted to do anything but cannabis. That was right out of school what I wanted to be doing. I actually took marketing 420 with Steve Kelly, and that was right before the minor launched.
Right.
Right.
That was my first course in it.
Yeah, it's a great course too, and you get to hear from so many different people. I think uh I did recently look back at that course, and I feel like the only thing that was missing, at least from my agenda and my, segments of the course, was somebody who was immediately post grad and really went
Right.
through the struggle of trying to break into this industry. Just as like I have a degree in communications and business minor, and it's one of those majors where communications majors like to joke that it's like a soft major, but you can do so much once you know how to communicate. And I also not only really credit Steve Kelly, but also Tim Cole. Have you ever had a class with him?
I have not.
I hope he's still around at
In
DePaul
the
because
business school?
he was in the communication school, and he taught a class on mindfulness, which was half mindfulness and then half entrepreneurship. Um, and
That
just taught me about how humans communicate with each other. We took an interpersonal communications class. It changed my life. And I feel like cannabis is such a tricky industry where you are balancing trying to do something new and big and legal and be in compliance with the government. But cannabis is so much about the culture of pre-government intervention, and there are so many thousands of years of history behind cannabis, and trying to balance that with trying to bring it and market it like any other business is really tough, you know?
it's really tough because you kind of have to not dance on eggshells, but be really sensitive and mindful to the history that cannabis does hold and also the complications that comes with that. And that's what really inspired me to get into cannabis is, okay, I see there's benefits, there's recreational use, it's already been legalized in a lot of states, but why are we still having this stigma and why are we still having these systematic issues that we are having surrounding it? So I think that kind of leads me into my next question. As a media coordinator, how do you use those communication and interpersonal skills to one, kind of get a read on who you're talking to, how they're feeling about cannabis, because it can be a delicate conversation, and then what you want to convey about your company. It's more than a cannabis company. I know it's women owned, which is absolutely wonderful. So what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think it's different for every company for sure. Like I spent some time with Arise, and they are very much about the culture. Where I am now at Bedford Grow, we are 100% about pharma grade cannabis and making sure your cannabis is as clean as it can physically be. And a huge emphasis on medical use. So when I'm putting out content around Bedford Grow and Lula's, Lula's is kind of more fun, but I try and make it as educational as possible. So there's a lot of strain information, a lot of edible descriptions, stuff like that. One of my first posts I put out on it was like history of different women in cannabis and other women-owned dispensaries that we like to support because Bedford Grows unique that we're, and every company is unique that we're B2B, but we're also B2C at this like very simultaneously. So you have to be in touch with your sales partners and your stores, but you also have to be in touch with the consumers that you're talking to. And we really heavily lean into the education and cleanliness of our product.
Interesting. It's really cool to hear cleanliness of the product because as the market becomes a lot more saturated, especially with edibles, there can be chocolates, candies, and yes, there's marijuana in there. However, there's so many other things. So if it's clear and cut, I think it's very educational to the consumer to say, this is exactly what you're having, and this is the exact potency, and so they know. I
Yeah.
would say, since you weren't able to have that program. Luckily, there was a Cannabis 420 class. I can tell you the program is absolutely amazing. There is everything from the Beatles and psychedelics with the war on drugs all the way to cannabis entrepreneurship. So it really comes full circle.
That's
Having
awesome.
that basis of education, what would you advise to not only women in the cannabis studies program at DePaul, but just all of the students on breaking into that industry? How to do that, one, on a professional side, using those communication skills, but at the same time, still being mindful of this is an ever-changing space, and you do want to convey those educational lessons as much as possible. I know
Yeah,
that's a
definitely.
loaded question.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna ask you the question again, but I did just want to say one more thing about like cleanliness and stuff like that. I don't know if you heard about that big lawsuit out of California with Stizzy and a few other companies where they got a bunch of products recalled because of terrible additives in their product and carcinogen stuff like that. So that's just really important that as this industry is expanding so rapidly, a lot of people are choosing to cut corners and a lot of people are putting out product that's remediated and kind of goes into your question about good things to know. I didn't know this going in. I've only started learning this at my new position, but it's really important to know about the plant because that's what it's all about. Like I am fortunate enough that my office is the grow space, so I get to go in and handle the plant every day if I want to. So yeah, knowing about like how that is made and understanding the processes and the actual care and love that you should be putting into the product, it's so important. Like, but that being said, I did start a dispensary, not touching the plant at all because, Illinois dispensaries, you don't touch the plant at all. It's all sealed, all very pharmacy like, whereas in Colorado, it's, you can literally scoop it out of a jar or something like that. So I think it's also important to understand that Illinois is a very unique market in that it operates very similarly to any other packaged good rather than an organic material, really. So, with the way that Illinois treats the plant and the way that we want to treat the plant as a culture and a community, it's very different. And for people breaking into it, my biggest advice is just do your best to educate yourself on the plant itself, because that's going to be the most impressive thing to people working in this industry. And then network. Like network. There are so many events. There is a cannabis events newsletter made by another former DePaul grad that I will connect you with if you're not already connected with her, Maddie Scanlon.
Yes, I actually had one scheduled with her, and then I think it was on the same day of one of the events, but I had all my friends sign up for the newsletter for High Focus Media. So
Yes.
super excited to have a conversation with her as well.
She is like one of those people where she is all over the place because she has so much going on. She is like building a whole empire of cannabis culture and community in Chicago. It's and Illinois, in fact,
Which
and
is amazing
I'm
to
really
see.
proud. She's really cool, and I'm really proud of her and what she's doing. And literally, her whole thing was cannabis insights, and she worked for an analyst group. So I go to her for a lot of advice, that's for sure. And that newsletter does so much. I send that to everyone in the industry that I'm like, oh, if you're looking how to get more connections, pick an event, pick a day you're free, bring a friend, go do it. It's really worth it.
It's really cool to see the entire community. There's one local one called Brunch of Stoners, which of course they have
Yes,
a brunch, and I was like, what could be better? And it's really cool to see everyone there is really open to talking about the plant, but also just talking about their experiences, which I'm very curious about your dispensary experience because I know it's very different in Illinois versus another market. I'm from Michigan, so when you're talking about, oh, you can just scoop up some flour, they'll bring
lucky.
it right to your face. You can sniff whatever you want. And versus here, very much so transactional. You either have to know what you want or the bud tender is just going to give you something. Can you talk a little bit about that dispensary experience and maybe why that drove you to keep going, keep fighting for the plant, and also what you learned from a sales perspective there? Because I think that's really good.
Definitely. It is really interesting. You're right. I think it's one of the pieces of advice I got coming out of school was work in a dispensary if you want to work in this industry. It gives you, sorry, there was a frog in my throat, obviously.
I have been coughing and hacking for like 2 weeks. I get it.
It's like still, I'm not gonna try and swallow it because it'll just make it worse. But but working in the dispensary lends you a level of credence that you are on the ground floor. Like you know what the consumer wants. And for my time, I was working at the one right next to O'Hare, which is an international airport. So not only was I getting locals from the area, but also people from all over the world, which was really interesting. It's interesting how you get treated too. Working on the ground floor in an industry as a woman where it's something that people have become so accustomed to being on the streets, it puts you in a different position because at that point you're a pharmacist, but you're also a friend. You're also somebody that helps you have a party. You are a therapist sometimes. You'd be surprised the kind of stuff that people come in and tell you. And sometimes you freaking help people through death. Like it's a really crazy job to have. And yeah, it's crazy how when you kind of meet some people that are in the industry who came in from another industry where they were already very well established, they don't quite understand how medicinal this plant is. Even for the people that are smoking recreationally or consuming recreationally, it's still medical. Like you just don't really realize it yet, you know?
Right. It's like you're still gonna get these effects, and whether you're looking to alleviate for a good time, recreational, or maybe you have some pain, whether that be mental or physical, there's a plethora of not only products, but brands that really present themselves to say, this is what's in our products, and this is how you're gonna feel from it, or kind of, you can't exactly say everyone's gonna feel the same way, but along those lines. I know we've got a few minutes left. I wanted to know if there was any highlighting themes that you've taken away from your time in the industry so far, and maybe things that you want to see change moving forward.
I would say if you really care about the plant, find other people that care about the plant in the same way because sadly not everyone does. Like it's the green rush really is what it is. So there's a lot of people coming in. I got it. There's a lot of people coming in that are just seeing dollar signs and it's unfortunate, but there are a lot of people who genuinely love the plant. And with a lot of restrictions kind of opening up, more licenses going out, there's a lot of craft grows opening up, which is really exciting because those are people getting into it purely out of the love. Because at this point, you said you're from Michigan. I'm
They're
from
quite
Tennessee, where
different.
it's not even legal at all. Like, and they're selling some crazy stuff down there. If you want to talk about regulations out of state, it gets weird. But for at least, Michigan, people realize that it's not profitable entirely to run a weed business.
Mhm.
In Illinois, it's kind of a different story. But the thing about Illinois, spend any time on the Illinois Trees Reddit, they'll sniff you out if you don't care. Like they will sniff you out. If you are in it for the money, they will be able to tell and they will not support you. For example, I really wanted to work for GTI when I first started in this industry, but there's an entire boycott going on surrounding their company right now. It's really interesting how everything ebbs and flows, and you just really have to prove that you're in it for the right reasons.
I think that's a really good takeaway because you see a lot of people can get interested in going all the way back, not only for a professional endeavor, but a career endeavor. People often look at what am I going to choose as my major to set me up for success. There's
Yeah,
fun.
sweet.
But
Not
looking
alone.
further into it, you can say, okay, where are my passions at? And then how can I move forward with that? And that, I think that's the basis of any other degree or any other career you could go into. And it's really opening not only the mind, but the doors for people who want to go into this space. You can go to a dispensary, you can go to a cultivation center, or you could just be an advocate and start posting on social media like, hey, this is okay. I'm normal. This is normal.
Yeah,
Kind of
that's huge.
changing
That's
that
huge. And
conversation.
that's also a way I started out. But also, I really do want to point out ancillary businesses. That's huge because, in terms of bud tenders, they aren't always necessarily the most educated. So there's seed talent. It's a course system that you take as a bud tender literally every day, every time a new course gets posted. There's businesses like that. There's businesses like the technology companies that build the menus for dispensaries, biotrack. Like there's a lot of stuff that you can get into cannabis, not just like B2B, B2C. There's so much.
Exactly. Well, I'm super excited that we got to connect, and then I'll keep you
Okay.
updated, vignette or vignette. I can never determine which one, but I'll keep you updated on those
Yeah,
stories that I compile, and then I will be releasing that book or like little booklet and
that's awesome.
you kind of in the loop in all the updates of the cannabis studies program.
Hell yeah. And if you ever wanted to, try and get connected to some of the women I work with too, we have like an
Definitely.
OG businesswoman, Laurel, who founded the company. She is badass. So
I
yeah,
would love to talk to her. I love to pick people's brains and just kind of hear their experience, hear their stories. And now it's kind of the perfect time at where I'm at that weird crossroad of, okay, I'm going to go from studying this to actually being hands-on with this. And it's very exciting to hear
yeah.
all of that insight.
It is exciting. I will say, like for me coming out, it was terrifying. And I feel very
It's scary.
lucky with where I landed. And I'm not saying it should terrify you because you seem to have a really cool thing going on for you. I'm really excited for you. This is awesome.
I'm really excited also. Just thank you.
Yeah, but
And
anytime at all, if you ever like need connections, if there's anything I can do to help, I will. Shout out to Paul, Go Blue Demons. I
Steve Kelly.
love that damn school.
It
Steve
is a
Kelly,
really
the man. So
cool. He's been
yeah, I
amazing.
yeah, he